feared and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me solid through and through, and such eagle my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
Ooh, we are chasing the pennant tonight. We are CTP Podcast. I am Shane, and I'm bringing this one to you guys with Joe Boric. Joe, how you doing, sir?
Doing very well. Hope you are as well.
Yeah, man, I'm also doing well. Got pulled over whilst on a therapy session. That was awkward to have a therapist talk to an officer, but such is life. Scott, how are you?
Doing good. Reporting live with my new microphone plugged in for the first show, so my audio quality should be better if I sound a bit smooth jazzy, if you will. You know, let me know. I want to hear how good of an investment this microphone was or how much I got ripped off. So
it's absolute phone sex at this point, man. So
there you go.
If you're not wet whilst listening to this show, I don't know what's wrong with you. And then we have everyone's worst enemy of the evening. We have a guy who's going to blindly defend why it's okay that JT does not re-sign in Philadelphia.
Wow. You're just throwing all my business out there.
I am going to throw it out there, man. But how are you?
I was trying to come in with a surprise, but about an hour before the show, I got pretty far down the rabbit hole of a little conspiracy theory, put on the tinfoil hat, and came up with a couple reasons why, JT not coming back might not be as bad as everybody wants to make it out to be.
I cannot wait to hear some of these arguments. For all you guys who think that, hey, maybe we kind of construct these things and we all speak to each other about our takes, we do genuinely want to be surprised at some points. And tonight, we're going to be surprised. We didn't talk about a damn thing with each other for this entire day about what was going to go on tonight. So everything you hear, it's going to be our first time hearing it as well. But I'm going to kick this over to Scott to start us off. He is going to reintroduce a bit that I absolutely love, and that basically we are going to murder Sean tonight for his takes. Scott, go ahead.
So we're bringing back Don't Shit on Short. Last time, if you had listened to the show, we had defended Rafael Palmeiro and why he was not a despicable human being. I tried to, yeah. So the concept of the bit is it's a handicap match, if you will. It's all against one. The three of us, Shane, Joe, and myself, are going to argue against Sean. He is going to defend why JT Realmuto does not need to sign with the Phillies. And you can't say this without laughing because it's the most ridiculous take ever. You know what, Sean? We're going to let you pick the coin flip here. You can decide to start or let us start. Up to you.
Well, I have a feeling that whether I start or let you guys start, regardless of when I go, I'm going to get cut into. So I'd rather start and then, go piece by piece, let you guys get your, 2 cents in there. I just want to start it off plain and simple. Matt Klentak, the right thing to do is to re-sign him. He made the All-Star team. I'm starting it off saying this because I agree. I have the same feeling, and I've said this on the show before. I have the same feeling as I do when, the Phillies were tied to Bryce Harper, that they were going to end up getting him. They're going to end up re-signing JT. It makes too much sense. He wants to be here. Bryce wants him here. Now.
So far, I agree.
Let's get into some reasons why, maybe it's not worth re-signing him, and maybe it's not worth extending him. JT is 29 years old, and, that doesn't sound old.
What are you trying to say about 29-year-olds?
You're still catching 145 games a year for a major league team?
No, my knees are shot because I'm 29. What do you think?
You just proved my point.
I know.
JT has been catching. While he is, no offense, in much better shape. No, he's been doing this his entire life. He's been training.
No, he hasn't.
He was. What was he? A shortstop?
That's correct.
At one point? Yes. Okay.
His knees are fine.
I did know that. In college, he's been catching for a multitude of years now at the major league level. He did make the All-Star team last year. Sure. Again, he's 29. And this is what people like to go to when they talk about JT Realmuto. He's a 5-tool player. And as of right now, yes, he is a 5-tool player. He has the speed, he fields well, he throws well, he hits for average and hits for power at first glance. So, again, 29, he's a catcher. That speed's going to go down. He's going to be looking for a long-term deal. He's going to be looking for a 5 or 6 year deal, and God damn it, he's going to get it, because as of this exact moment, he is the best catcher in baseball. He's going to be looking for a 5 or 6 year deal. I, again, believe the Phillies are going to be the one to give it to him. But his speed's going to go down, 1. 2, in the 5-tool player, he fields well. Sure, he is an above-average fielding catcher. Who did he help on the Phillies last season? Name one pitcher that had a better season in 2019 than in 2018.
Are we going to put that on JT?
They all.
We're not going to put that on JT. But yeah, they all sucked. Aaron Nola regressed. Pivetta
Aaron Nola had a near Cy Young year
in 2018.
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
Last year he was not great.
He
but I'm saying,
I'm not putting that all on JT.
But what's the outlier there? Aaron Nola to this point in his career has been good, not great. He had one great year.
But how many seasons have you ever seen in even like the Philly standards? We've all lived through tough Philly seasons. Every year it seems like at least somebody takes a step forward in one way or another. Pitching wise, let's stick to the pitchers as of right now. Name one guy that did that last season for the Phillies.
Hector Neris.
He was just as good the year before when he came back after. I will agree with that. I won't argue that point in the slightest. But a lot of that you get this new catcher who's supposed to be the best catcher in baseball, and he doesn't help any of the pitchers to improve. Everybody wants to look at just the stats that are right in front of your eyes. You're not looking at how he helps these pitchers. Yes, he led the league in throwouts, and how many times he caught a runner stealing. He was the best in baseball in that, absolutely. But you look at the rest of his fielding stats, and he's not that high above average.
So one of the things that is going to go directly against this is it takes time for a catcher to build a relationship with his pitching staff. He's been doing it for 1 year. So if you bring in another catcher, because if you don't sign him and he goes somewhere else or whatever, you're starting this process again. So then you don't have the best defensive catcher in baseball, or one of them, because he leads one of the main sabermetrics that you use to benchmark a catcher. And on top of that, you have a fresh guy who might be a nerd, and Aaron Nola might not like him, and then he might regress more, and then you're out your ace too. So
okay, but you're talking about the exact same situation from 2017 to 2018 when Aaron Nola switched from Cameron Rupp every day to Jorge Alfaro every day, and he had a near Cy Young performance.
I think that was more to do with Kranitz than the catcher. These guys all build a rapport with the person who's feeding them the information to be successful. You have to trust that person. And how many different voices did we have to hear last year say that they did not trust Chris Young? He wasn't even liked as a human.
Yeah, he was dog shit at his job. But I'm not.
But
that's
you
not
put
what I'm
those
talking
two
about.
together. But you have to talk about that, because who's building this plan? It goes beyond JT calling a pitch out there. JT's as frustrated as everybody else. He was one of the voices who had stated how frustrated he was at times. It can't all come down to the guy who was on the field. Ultimately, he has to execute the game plan, and I get that. But at what point do we say this game plan didn't work? They were all asked to pitch differently. One of your favorite guys, or maybe it's Andrews, I can't recall because I missed you guys up so much.
Zach Eflin, that was me. Yep.
It was Zach Eflin.
We talked about
when
this.
Zach Eflin said, "You know what? Fuck Chris Young. I'm going to go back to pitching the way that I know is going to make me successful," and it worked. These guys know their bodies, they know their arsenal, and ultimately the person who's going to grow that with them is going to be the best catcher in baseball, 29 years, 50 years old. Not really going to fucking matter. It's going to be JT Realmuto. And then when they build that bond and that trust, you're going to welcome in, at this point, you're welcoming in Price, who I believe has the ability to connect on a human level to anyone at any age in this game because of the raw emotion that's kind of attached. He's not, as Scott would say, just a sabermetrics nerd. This is a guy that's going to come in here, and he has and develop some of that old school grit and mind. That's going to transfer so much better to the guys who came up playing old school baseball. Most of these guys did not come up saying, I'm just going to throw 97 miles an hour high in the zone and create the most severe spin rate possible on anything that was off speed. No, they learned how to pitch. And Price is going to do that for them. And he's going to institute a plan that's more collaborative, and he's going to hear his pitchers. When they need to be straightened up, they'll be straightened up. And that's going to go through a guy that they have to trust on the diamond with them, who's going to deliver that message more often than not, JT.
Okay, I'm glad you tied that back into JT at the end, because I was about to say you're pinning this all on the pitching coach. You're not even.
It is all on the pitching coach.
It's
like
agree.
90%.
I don't even think any of it's on JT last year, because you're asking pitchers that you didn't even get them first to harness their damn control before you told them to throw up and in, which is the hardest pitch to throw in baseball. And watching freaking MLB Network, I've heard multiple pitchers that have appeared on MLB Network say the Phillies are idiots. Not the rest with idiots, but just their pitching coach doesn't know what he's doing, because they're telling pitchers that have no control to begin with, throw up and in. That's the dumbest thing in the history of baseball, to tell pitchers that you didn't even harness their control.
Like the dumbest thing in the history of baseball is wearing electronic buzzers.
About his electronics and what his analytical stuff was, rather than fixing the pitcher's issues in order to fit him into their system. He's just like, oh, do my system. It's like, well, that's not really how it works. That reminds me of my damn professor at LaSalle when in programming, when he just started saying, oh, yeah, do this. And it's like, well, how do we program it? I have no freaking clue. It's like, oh, well, I dropped that class, obviously. That's what that reminds me of.
And we dropped Chris Young.
Step. And that's why we dropped Chris Young. Yeah, now he's working in some analytics department.
Completely.
So hold on, let's get back to JT Realmuto for a second. So Sean, hypothetically, it's not worth signing him. Who do we get, and what do we do with this extra money? Because I think that's the most interesting part of the argument.
We've said. Okay. Who do we spend it on? There are options out there. There are free agents. There's big name free agents. We're getting Arrieta off the books. That's the big thing after the season. We're also, if we're not spending it on JT. That's what's always been the theory, is that JT is going to slide right into Arrieta's, contract and get $25 million a year for however long. But in my opinion, Alfaro came up and he's been a decent catcher for the Marlins. You can't argue that Alfaro's been okay for the Marlins. He's been, they throw him right in the middle of the lineup. He's been
Who else is going to hit in the middle of the Marlins lineup?
Okay, but he's been at least decent for them. It's not like he belongs in the minors on any other team. Like,
someone bring up his O-swing percentage right now, because that guy, he swings and misses more than anyone I've ever watched play the game, besides maybe Nick Williams.
That's one thing I really didn't go ahead, work.
No, I was going to say the other side of it, Sean, is who are you replacing JT with? Though? I like Grione as a, yeah, I know, but are you replacing him with Grione? Because I like him as a backup potential to develop behind JT, because he can also play other positions, but not necessarily as a starter. And it's not like you have anybody near as good as him in next year.
I'm glad you mentioned the phrase other positions in this one.
I agree. That's where the money's going to go. If you're not going to get the best catcher in baseball, you don't spend all of your money on a second-rate catcher.
Oh, no. At this point, the other position thing, whether we like it or not, and all four of us in this particular show are not exactly in favor of the DH. It's coming. Like, it is coming. On any given night, you're going to see the best catcher in baseball play first base or DH. That's going to happen. We're going to have the freedom to do that now, to kind of interchange these parts and kind of take off some of the stress. At a certain point, Boric, you're right. If it's going to be Grione, which I don't really think it's going to be, but if it becomes him, he's going to need some time behind the plate, and he's going to also need to develop a rapport if he's going to be able to kind of take over that defensive aspect that Andrew Knapp brings, along with the offensive side that a Grione brings. He's going to need that time back there. So JT can't catch 145 games again. It's just not. That's not likely for anyone. It's not in anybody's best interest. But if you bring the DH here, which, again, I hate the DH, but at this particular point, it makes a hell of a lot of sense for maximizing the talent and the contracts that are going to be on the books for the Philadelphia Phillies. At 29 years old, I really don't give a shit. This guy is an athletic freak. He was an all-star in basketball. He was an all-star in football. He was an all-star shortstop. Didn't play catcher until the last 4.5 years. Like, he doesn't have the same wear and tear as a 29-year-old catcher would. I don't understand where, one, your argument started with age, which I think is ridiculous. We've seen catchers be successful for many years beyond that age of 29. Their game changes and alters, but at the same point, so does their role. Maybe they're not catching 145. Maybe they're down to 135. Maybe they're playing first base and Buster Posey in it and Joe Mauering it sometimes. Maybe they're DHing sometimes. Maybe they're just reducing that role in the back end. It is what it is, but they're still successful, man. And a freak athlete like JT, I'm sorry, you can't sit here and sell me on you think his skills are going to diminish. Further, I seriously need to hear an argument as to why you think that the value of JT, when we move our, at the time, most electric prospect, who has been compared to Pedro freaking Martinez, over for him for a rental of what now will ultimately be potentially a year and a half. That's absurd. You can't do that. There's no defending.
An article came out in early 2019. It's called Baseball's Top 10 Prospects We Hope Have a Healthy New Year. You know number one on that list was?
He's 6 foot tall. He's going to be a number one on everyone's list is Sixto Sanchez. He's going to be fine.
Top 10 prospects we hope have a healthy new year.
Go ahead.
Meaning he is number one out of everybody's list of prospects that have injury issues.
The only problem is if he pans out and Alfaro, who you already pointed out, is doing pretty well for the Marlins.
It's not doing pretty well. But
Whoa, wait a minute.
At 262.
His point back on him. So Alfaro's doing pretty well for the Marlins, and Sanchez hits his ceiling, or even his floor, because his floor is probably a solid third starter if he doesn't get injured, where his ceiling's an ace. Then we gave them two good people for a 1.5 year rental, like Shane said.
I'm not saying Alfaro's, amazing. He's bottom half of most of the offensive stats as far as, other than average, he's a top 15 player. A couple of the bigger stats, hits, whatever the case may be. He started 130 games for the Marlins last season. He hit 262. That's pretty damn good for, a catcher which is a position that a lot of people think is more focused on defense than offense. I'm not saying that's great. His on base was 312. That's garbage. He doesn't walk. He strikes out a lot.
How many times did he strike out?
But I'm using him as an example as he came up in 2018 and he was, you could use him. You could use him as somebody to fill a gap or, maybe he has an outstanding year. And that's something I think you can put on Grullon or even Rafael Marchand in a year or two. He's right there. And he's already impressed in spring training. It's not like we don't have options right behind him. Yeah, we're going to be empty as it is. And, the entire fan base is going to groan when Andrew Knapp comes up as the starting catcher for a year. But, it's not the worst thing in the world. And I even said at the beginning, he's going to come back. I know he's going to come back. And he deserves to come back. And I think this is where he wants to be. This is where he'll end up. But it isn't the worst thing. And I had one main argument, and I'll let you guys touch on that before I get to this, that truly sticks out in my head. And when I finally found this, I was very happy. First off, about the Marchand and Grullon thing, I don't know if any of you guys have an opinion on that.
I think Marchand is actually a very good catcher. He reminds me, when I was watching him, a little bit of budding like Ruiz, because he's a great fielder to start, and then he's probably going to develop hitting as he goes along. The problem is he's 20, so I don't know exactly. I think when I looked on MLB.com, his projection was 2022, if I wasn't mistaken.
Yeah, projections ain't anything anymore.
They don't. But I'm saying I could see that being the case. He would be coming up at about age 22 at that point. That seems pretty legit. And then if Grullon, like you're saying, Sean, if JT left and Grullon filled in decently, obviously they wouldn't rush him up either. So I like a Marchand. He would be my guy that I would think could become the starter if JT leaves. The problem is his hitting stats won't be close to JT until probably 3 or 4 years down the line. That's my concern there. You're letting go of a great dynamic player on both ends for a guy that's just going to be dynamic on one end until he develops into a better hitter.
So can I read something about Alfaro real quick? I happened to pull this up when we were talking about
Go
swing
for
and miss rate. 529 times. Jorge Alfaro swung and missed at a pitch 529 times in 2018. If that sounds a bit staggering, it's because it is staggering. No player with at least 150 plate appearances made as little contact rate-wise in 2018.
Therefore, trading him away is absolutely fine. Right?
No.
He's
Here's the thing.
He has 37%
should
swing
not-
and miss rate.
No. At the end of the day, as you mentioned it, Boric, he's serviceable enough to get you over. He is a known bridge that we could have utilized.
And
You
so
cannot
is
trade
Davey
your
Gurriel.
current. Davey Gurriel stinks. That is not going to work out. Davey Gurriel, there's a reason the DH is going to come to the freaking NL. It's a Davey Gurriel. But you can't.
Hey, he can
Again,
hit.
the only way that you could sell me on this is if Sixto Sanchez never amounts to anything. And I have seen him pitch 3 times live, I think. There are very few pitchers that I have watched live where I've been like, holy shit, like this may be one of the greatest pitchers I have ever watched in my life or has the potential to grow into that. He's got that. The reason there is such a concern behind him outside of the fact that he has had injury issues is the fact that, one, he's growing into his body still, and learning to be stretched out as a starter to withstand 200 plus innings, which, as we see, is not easy to do. Slowing up a bigger body like a Spencer Howard for the same type of a reason. He is a violent kind of a throw, and he's small. His stride is long. If you take a look at a guy like a Tim Lincecum, his delivery is not anywhere as complex as what a Lincecum was, but Timmy Lincecum had an assload of concern as to how long his career would be able to last. Now, ultimately, the length of his career was shorter than I think what we would like to have seen from a Tim Lincecum. But he had like a 6.5, 7-year prime that was unreal. That's kind of what you're going to get out of a Sixto Sanchez. So unless he never sniffs the major leagues, or when he does, cannot stay healthy and gets translated over to a bullpen piece or something, and he's just meh. If you don't re-sign JT, that is grounds to be fired.
I don't disagree with that at all. And, I've always been an optimist. I've never been a fan of Clentac. And, Bryce wasn't his idea. Everything he has done little to nothing good for the Phillies' future. And, that's a whole nother topic. But I want to get into one of my biggest points that I had for this debate, and that was not so much clutch numbers, but clutch numbers. And this is not specifically like there are analytics for clutch. There are people that come up with statistics that define how clutch a person is. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot more complicated than what I'm going to give you. I'm looking at runners in scoring position. And in 2019, with runners in scoring position, JT Realmuto in 145 at-bats with somebody on second or third base overall in 2019. He batted .241 with a .276 on base and a .676 OPS. .241. That's
you have the years prior?
I'm talking about 2019.
It's great. I'm asking about the years prior.
I didn't even freaking look because I noticed it when he was on the Phillies. When he was on the Phillies, batting behind the likes of Bryce Harper, Rhys Hoskins, Gene Segura, Andrew McCutchen for half a season, batting behind them for an entire season, quarter of a season, 145 at-bats, a .241 average, a .676 OPS.
Yeah. We had a bad hitting velocity, too.
They were 81 and 81. They split even.
That's a train wreck when you looked at the talent that we walked into that season with. And as hot as we started that year.
Bryce Harper had a fantastic season.
Bryce Harper had the second best season of his
entire
career.
But he's
However,
also a mega talent. So you can surpass bad coaching as a mega talent.
And JT Realmuto batted 2 batters behind him. In 145 at bats, he had a 676 OPS. Now let's get a little more specific into the clutchness of this. Past runners in scoring position. How about runners in scoring position with 2 outs? 77 at bats, a 208 average, 274 on base, 624 slugging. To give you guys some context on those numbers, with runners in scoring position and 2 outs, batting in the 5 spot behind former All-Stars Bryce Harper, Rhys Hoskins, Gene Segura, and Andrew McCutchen for a quarter of a season. 77 at bats, 208, 274, 624 OPS. All of those stats are worse than Andrew Knapp's stat line in 2019.
oh my God.
I'm not talking
not
about
fair.
Andrew Knapp's clutchness. I'm talking about Andrew Knapp total in the 2019 season had better numbers than JT Realmuto with runners in scoring position and 2 outs.
Because he also had a way less sample size than JT Realmuto with runners in scoring position and 2 outs. That's going to break down your numbers.
I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about his entire season.
So that you're
I
looking at this the
understand,
wrong way.
But Hampton
So,
nearly as
so
well.
I don't actually care about Knapp's stats there. I want to hear about other catchers in the league, right? Because when you break it down to the Moneyball philosophy, it's literally just getting the value for your money. So we're trying to give him a $20 or $25 million contract yearly or annually. I want to see what other catchers are getting for their money, and then you break it down dollar by dollar here. So if every other catcher in the league is hitting 185, then yeah, we kind of have to pay that extra money for, the shitty runners in scoring position average. So that's the way that you look at if it's worth it or not.
And with
go
that argument, you already said, Sean, that you believe that the majority of the catchers in this game right now are looked at to be a more defensive-minded person. So maybe at a 208 or a 241 in either of those two specific stats, that is a higher value than what you are getting out of most other catchers. Most of the catchers also aren't hitting in the middle of an order.
Yep.
Like there is a value that you pay to that, just as Scott said, and what his value is, while we may not like a number of 208, we very well may be paying exactly what we should be for a guy like JT.
I mean, sure. Like, I'm just saying, it feels like other catchers in the league, and I mean, of course, against the Phillies, you want to look at other catchers, like there are guys that hit better with runners in scoring position than 2 outs or runners in scoring position. There are catchers that come up in the clutch. Kurt Suzuki comes up in the clutch, a Phillies
Just
rival.
against us.
Feels like Brian McCann comes up in the clutch every other
Just
at bat.
against us.
We
Seriously,
let Wilson
he does.
Ramos go to the freaking Mets.
Just
Feels
against us.
But isn't that what it's all? It's us. Who gives a shit about how they do against the rest of the league? Like, we're worried about the Phillies, and
Well, yeah, but they're not.
Well, that's how
do
you
good.
plan.
You're not going to plan to, like, what do you mean? Like, you would rather want those guys on the team than JT? Because, like, what's the whole point behind even bringing guys up that kill us? Because it's not like we're going to take those guys so they don't kill us, because they're just going to suck on our team other than against certain teams.
I'm just comparing it to how they perform, in the same statistics that, you want to throw JT up there. I pointed this out to, I went on a trip last year, and I brought this up in the last podcast. We went to Kennywood in Pittsburgh, and it was in the middle of July. It was the same weekend that the Phillies were at the Pirates, so I got to see PNC Park. I loved it there. I caught a foul ball. It was fucking awesome.
No, that's huge.
But-
That is awesome.
And I said to my friends, I said, watch JT Realmuto. And I said, like, we went to one game. I said, I've been coming up with a theory all year. I love JT. I bought a jersey the second, I love him. I love wearing a jersey. I love being proud that he's, the quote unquote best catcher in baseball, plays for the Phillies. That's something that, we've rarely ever experienced, having the best player at a specific position on our team. But I even said it. I said, he's a little overrated when it comes to the plate, when it comes to how good he is at the plate. I said, watch him come up every single at bat. He's going to be in a couple different scenarios in this game right now. He's going to come up with players on base or runners on base, and he's going to come up short. But he's going to come up 2 innings later with nobody on, and he's going to hit a triple or a double down the line, and everybody's going to freak out because that's
you're making him sound like he's the ultimate Pat Burrell of 2020 and beyond, or 2019 and beyond, and that's just it's not fair. Like, we're looking at this at year one of JT, who we all gave Bryce Harper a pass for half a season last year because how different his life got. Like, sure, it's on a different scale and level, but JT's life got different too, and like JT didn't have this choice in the matter. He was just uprooted from a life. Granted, the perception was that he was probably going to be traded somewhere, but he didn't exactly know where. That's difficult to deal with. And last year he hit in multiple different places in that lineup behind multiple different guys. I love Gabe Kapler to death. I still think he's a fine manager, but that wasn't an easy situation for any of those guys to be in last year. And it wasn't an easy situation for Gabe. So many injuries, so many things went down. The way that was constructed only lasted, 31 games or something until Andrew McCutchen got hurt. Like, you have to look at the entire picture here. I just think it's irresponsible not to.
The other side is we saw how much with another sports team, bringing in great coaching with the Flyers impacted the team. You bringing in the upper echelon great coaches with the Phillies this year, and Price, Dillon, and Girardi, you're probably going to see some of the best hitting seasons out of these guys where it's not all analytical basis, like Shane said earlier with Price in terms of pitching. Dillon's more on a case-to-case basis and relatable with the players than anybody we had in the past or in the Kapler or other than, of course, when Chuck came back. So I think that's going to go a long way, too. And this is really the judgment year for where we're going to rate JT rather than last year, like Shane said.
Don't know that you can use this year for anybody. This is a weird-ass year. Next year, theoretically.
Well, yeah, next year, you're right.
This is a weird-ass year.
This year's all screwed up. You're right. Yeah, the next full season will probably be a judgment year.
As a Philly sports fan for my entire life, I have full confidence, because we always do, in the new coaches. I have full confidence in Girardi. I have full confidence in Price. And I have full confidence that Joe Dillon, coming off of a World Series winning team, is going to be, the best thing for this team. But how many times do we say we have the next best thing coming up? How many managers do we have to go through? And this is for all the teams. Like, it worked for the Flyers. How many coaches have they had to go through since, whenever they were successful last? It's not a guarantee. It's not a guarantee that Girardi's going to come in here and be amazing, and Price is going to come in and all the pitchers are going to have sub-3 ERAs. And it's not a guarantee that all of a sudden everybody's OPS is going to raise by 50 just because Joe Dillon comes in here.
Nothing's a guarantee.
Right.
But it's probably going to happen.
The probability is a lot higher with those guys in-house rather than inexperienced
how do we know
people
that?
Use major analytics.
Psychology
we don't
of the
know
game
that.
at this point, and the way that a human mind thinks. There was no connection to Gabe Kapler. These guys came in here, and it was almost immediate of a disconnect from the reality that they have grown up with their entire lives. They see this guy come in here, and again, I love Gabe Kapler. I still think he's a fine manager. I think at some point in his career, when he actually gets a real team and a real shot, which he didn't really have in Philadelphia, to be totally fair here,
Completely agree.
he's going to be fine. But when you look at how dysfunctional that clubhouse was and how much came out after Gabe Kapler and most of his entire camp goes away, you have to sit there and think, shit, man, like, how stressed do these guys have to be to come in and play for that clubhouse leadership there, and to play in this city, no less, and for many of them starting anew. And while this is it is a team game, it's a little less of a team game in terms of what you may look like or look for on an NBA court or an NHL hockey rink or even in the NFL. These guys still all had to learn to mesh together. It was so many guys' years, first year there. You have to take the psychology of that into this thing. And if someone can come in here and connect to the player, we got the guy that's going to do that. And he brought some good people with him.
So put that philosophy on the coaches. It's their first year. It's going to be a brand new system. It's going to be a brand new, like, you're talking about these guys that are proven, sure. What happened to them in their last, other than Joe Dillon, who we, stole and promoted from what he used to be doing? Girardi got fired. Brian Price got fired.
Hold on.
But I know they're proven. I know they've done good things in their life, and I'm using this as an argument towards JT. I will emphasize this over and over and over again. I am a firm believer in Girardi, Price, Dillon. They are going to do absolute wonders for this team for the future, and I truly believe that one of the two of them is going to end up being a manager again. But using your philosophy, JT being a first-year player coming into Philly, having to adjust, the pitchers having to adjust, like, who's to say that's not the exact same for the coaches?
Well, it seems like Joe Girardi's adjusting to Philly perfectly fine.
I'm not saying so did Bryce and JT. I'm saying, like, you're saying that they didn't have as, like, you use that as JT. He needed a year to.
That's their boss. That's fucking hard to be an employee. That's essentially how it is. There's a structure of leadership, and if you're uncomfortable going to work for a particular person who is telling you how to do your job, that's harder than what it is for someone to come in there and to be the evaluator of the talent that they have in front of them and to make something work that benefits that player and the team and the philosophy as a whole. It's a completely different argument.
I feel like you're proving my point more. It's harder.
What the hell are we talking about right now?
You're saying that you're saying that them coming in is implementing a whole new idea, a whole new system to players. It's going to be just like being here for the first year, and you're using that as an excuse for why JT didn't have, like, as decent or as good of a season, whatever. Like, I don't know. I feel like I'm not making sense anymore.
I think what Shane's trying to say is that when a new coach comes in, they implement a new system, which is new for all the players. Yeah. When a player comes into a pre-existing system that everyone else is already used to, they're reintegrating, and it's very difficult for a catcher who is an integral part of the play calling and just the defense in general. It's very difficult to integrate with something like that when you don't know anyone else.
And again, we're talking about a guy who took a dumpster fire of a Miami Marlins or then Florida Marlins team.
Say that made them. It was a fucking
right.
Fire.
But made them respectable. And then he goes to New York. Now, obviously, that payroll, that's a lot of personality there, for one. There's a comparison in that particular respect. But this is a guy who's done it before and is in touch with what it takes to bring a locker room together. Gabe Kapler had a philosophy that he believed might work, but he never had the opportunity to do that. He coached one team in the Olympic or in Baseball World Classics or whatever for like 6.5 weeks. Like, that's not enough. Like, it's a completely different argument at this juncture when you're sitting here talking about reintegrating these players into an existing, just as Scott said, into an existing system with a coach who has never done it before and doesn't really know what the fuck he's looking for. And he just, for better or for worse, understood what his philosophy was going to be and kind of did fail to adapt along the way, at least until it was too late. Girardi's different. It's a different animal, man. Like, this is not a first-year guy walking in here, without something to fall back on. Girardi, there's going to be a different type of connection, and Girardi was a fucking catcher who's going to understand your guy JT. Maybe JT's floor was last year. Like, to me, and we're going to talk in circles, so I think this is probably something we should bring back on Sunday with the rest of the guys, because I'd love to see Sean continue to roll with these punches at this point, because he's done a fucking great job so far. Honestly, this has been a fun discussion. But yeah, man, I just think that you're woefully inaccurate in the way that you believe Girardi's impact may be, as opposed to a Kapler. And a player's position coming into a clubhouse versus a manager who is evening the playing field for an entire organization.
Well,
it's just
using that point against you, why not, a year from now, if Realmuto is gone, if he truly does not re-sign with the Phillies, which again I don't believe is going to happen, I think he will be back. But if he's gone for the 2021 season, you've got a manager who now has a half of a season of experience managing the Phillies. He's got whatever game plan he has set. And then you got a young guy like Gruyan or Marchand come up, And their manager is a former catcher. Their manager is somebody that has proven success in the past. Why does it have to be a guy that's already proven that he is, quote unquote, the best catcher in baseball?
Because of what you shipped over and because of what he's already represented without question. Okay. Just as Scott said, there's a value to what JT is and has brought to this game, a value to his position, a value. He is what we know him to be already. I don't know what Marchand's going to be. You said it yourself. We fall in love with prospects like just the second we see them here in Philadelphia and how infrequently they pan out. It's amazing how often we still decide to fall in love with them. But these guys are, and honestly, they may grow into a fine catcher, either one of them, in Guerin and Marchand. Either one of them could become fine because he is here. But we know what JT is. And this is a win now mode. You got to keep him here.
It is, but I mean, again, he's gonna be 30 within the next year, and that's all I'm saying. He's gonna ask for a contract, and he's gonna get a contract of at least 5 to 6 years over $100 million. It's gonna happen, and not playing this season completely. It completely helps saves his knees for an entire season, and his value goes up because all you're looking at is his all-star season the year before. So I end this argument on that.
I was gonna say let's end this here because again I think we could circle back and forth and just attack you for the next 3 hours, and I'm happy to do that, but I don't think the listeners are. Bork and Shane, you guys got anything else to add to this one or?
No, man, we gave 41 minutes or essentially 41 minutes to the JT topic. And Sean, honestly, I'm proud of you. This was an awesome second stint of Don't Shit on Short here. You did a fine job defending your argument, as ridiculous as that argument is. It is something we will most certainly get the other guy's impression on Sunday as well. We'll give it at least a little bit of a bit there. But some additional news came out in baseball today. We're going to spend just a little bit of time on this because we do have to sit here and kind of bash Sean again later. And unfortunately, I'm on his side this time with the last topic that we'll get into. But before we get to that, we do want to kind of touch on one of the things that came out for Major League Baseball. This is actually something the guys talked about on Tuesday at the earlier week show. And Biscuit, I believe it was, who was bringing up different points and different concerns as to, we still haven't heard, the full plan that MLB is going to roll out in order to keep players safe. A little more has come out in the direction as to what may occur should a player test positive. And at this point, they are leaning towards, nothing again has been totally accepted, but they are leaning towards not shutting down the entire league should a player test positive. And for COVID, by the way, I didn't introduce that this is our weekly or daily showly, episodely. I don't know how we're going to say that. We always have to touch on the state of COVID and how it's affecting baseball and the likelihood that we watch it this year. But I am curious to hear everyone's thoughts at this point. We're all living kind of in different areas right now, so we are all seeing the effects of COVID a little differently in the way that it's impacting our daily lives. The one thing the MLB said was that, we're trying to minimize crowds. So there's obviously not going to be people in the stands, and baseball players, for the most part, are at least distancing themselves from each other, and they're seeing the same people every single day. So shutting down an entire league may be a little rash, but I am curious to see how you believe the players may feel about this. So I'm going to start with Bork, who actually read a bunch of Twitter threads on this very topic today. Go ahead, man. What do you got for us?
Yeah, well, I was going to say the one guy I read who usually has pretty good tweets about baseball, overall baseball, not just the Astros he covers, is Chandler Rome, and he said he was watching a CNN interview, and Rob Manfred actually said, our experts are advising us that we don't need a 14-day quarantine. The positive individual would just be removed from the group. And then basically what I said earlier before the podcast, they said that player would have to test negative twice in a 24-hour span to come back. So with that being said, I don't even know if there's going to be like, oh, you have to be out for 14 days That might just be whenever the hell you test negative in a 24-hour span, you're allowed to come back. Test negative twice in a 24-hour span, you're allowed to come back. Where everything else to this point has kind of been 14 days once somebody tests negative. We've heard from the government and different things of that nature. So that's a little bit different. To me, if they can somehow, and this is a big somehow, figure out a way to trace it and, like they've talked about, find people out and find the contagion before it spreads and isolate that person and make it safe to keep the season going, then more power to them. I just have concerns on if that's going to be able to happen, and I don't want to see a domino effect because 2 players get sick on 2 teams. We think we isolated people quick enough, and then because that team plays this team, another person gets sick, et cetera, et cetera. That's my major concern in all of it, but more power to them if they can figure it out, and I hope they can.
Well, I think one of the things that everyone is kind of forgetting through this argument is the NBA had a situation where Rudy Gobert, that goddamn jackass, licked or touched every microphone in the Jazz media room, made a joke about COVID, and then immediately tested positive for it. And he had touched a bunch of people and, sweated on them and was in the locker room interacting with them. And you know what? Like, it ended up not being as big of a disaster as we'd all thought. Just because you're within 6 feet or near someone doesn't mean you're all going to catch it. So I wish we would look at that and realize, is it good when someone gets COVID? No, it's certainly not. You can't wish anyone ill. We don't ever wish that on anyone, but there are ways that, we could isolate this person, see who they were around, look at videos, or I believe they're going to have RFID proximity chips their companies are working on and stuff that show when you were in contact with another person who may have tested positive, and you move on and life goes on, because that's what has to happen with this, and that's the main message we should be getting out of baseball starting again.
Yeah, I think ultimately, and this is something, Scott, you kind of brought up at least a show or 2 ago, but ideally, these should be some of the safest humans on the planet, because if we're all following the same structure of social distancing and doing all the necessary things to keep ourselves safe, these are athletes who don't theoretically ever have to go out into the public. The amount of money and convenience that their profession and career provides them is something like we'll never experience. They don't have to go to the grocery store themselves. They have people that can do that for them and that can provide that safely. Not only that, all these organizations have personal chefs that work out of their facilities. They can get everything they need from where they work. And I think that's something that's being, again, unless you have Rudy Gobert's out there who are specifically choosing to minimize the severity of what this thing is. This should theoretically be the healthiest people on the planet going out there and competing in an environment that is safe. There are no crowds. You're not coming into a whole hell of a lot of contact with a lot of people throughout most of this. It doesn't make sense to continue to fear it to the level that we have. At a certain point, we are going to have to go out there, and we've talked about this before also ad nauseum. Someone's going to have to be the first person to pull the trigger and say, you know what, we're going to give this a go, and we're going to keep track of the information that's out there, and we're going to make the adjustments as we go and keep people as safe as we believe we can. I still don't have a lot of faith in baseball doing things correctly, but someone eventually is going to have to do it. Sean, what do you have on it?
I mean, and you said this, on one of the last pods we talked about this. The second wave for some of the major, plagues that have happened in the world history, the second wave has usually been worse than the first wave, or not usually, but it has happened where the second wave is just as bad. And I have a strong feeling, and this goes for all of life, not just baseball, but I have a strong feeling that this second wave is coming, and it's going to be a lot worse than the first wave. And I think it's because of how long we've all been in quarantine and how long we've gone without seeing each other. Everybody's getting antsy. Everybody wants out. Everybody wants to go do stuff. And they start to hear that these numbers are dwindling. They're going to start acting like everything's back to normal again. And it only takes 1 or 2 people to go out and be all over everybody everywhere, not wear a mask, to completely spread it to an entirely new demographic, because as high as the numbers seem, they can get a lot higher. And, living in New Jersey, a memo or an announcement came out today saying that New Jersey beaches are going to be opened again come Memorial Day weekend, May 22nd. And obviously they're going to enact limitations, social distancing. Only a certain amount of people can go on the beach, but it seems too early. It seems like we're rushing into this. It seems like everybody's so sick of and bored, and they just want to go. And I have a feeling that it's not going to help baseball's push. The second wave is going to happen, and we're going to be, it might be a week or two into the season, and all of a sudden you hear half of a team gets it for whatever reason. It's not trending in the right direction, in my opinion.
So, what we need to do is look at calculated risks, right? So we need to look at the Rudy Gobert situation. We need to look at the UFC fight that happened last night and on Saturday. And there are ways we can pull this off without ruining, the quarantine that we all just had. Because if I had to sit inside for 2 months then I'm gonna fucking shit myself. It's not been fun sitting here doing nothing. Same thing with the beaches. Like in California, the beaches have been open intermittently, and people threw a goddamn fit when they were closed for a little because we were being safe on the beach. And there are ways to go out there and stay away from one another. Is it the safest thing? No, the safest thing is staying inside and not going outside. But you have to get out there at some point. So there are ways to do things safe, and I feel like as we have more and more data to draw from, for the UFC, from the NBA, from the Bundesliga soccer league that's playing, the MLB should have the data to go in and say, okay, it's safe for our guys now. Some of us are going to get this, and it's going to suck, but we have a plan put together. So let's do it.
I was going to say, though, in response to that, my biggest concern is how they're so trusting of everybody, where it seems like they're not going to potentially have, again, like Shane said, none of this is certain, but it seems like from everything I read, they're potentially not going to have, everyone has to stay quarantined because nobody would go for that. And I mean, you can trust, I guess, baseball players more than the common person, but they are just people too. So, and we have the workers involved and everything. These people are going to want to be around their families and everything when they go home, and not think
be allowed to
everything.
Yeah.
They'll be allowed to, but I know from the stuff I read, they said we're going to trust everyone to be cautious when they go home. So I don't know exactly what that means, where like they're going into a more ample situation potentially for it to spread, because the biggest thing that I remember seeing recently was in South Korea, where it was getting better. When I was watching the news with my parents the other day, some guy, I forget if it was to 20 or 30 people, but because he was asymptomatic and tested positive later on, he spread it to like 20 to 30 people going into different like restaurants and places in Korea. So from what I've read, the disease spreads more when you're asymptomatic, obviously, because you're going about your daily life. That's what worries me, if we have some asymptomatic Donovan Mitchell type players, and depending how we do the testing system, if they end up playing a game before they test positive. That's the only thing that concerns me, because we've seen recently with the White House staff person, they didn't test positive the morning for that event they went to without a mask. Then the next day they test positive. So that's the first time we're really seeing that quick of a difference. That's my only concern.
Yeah, this is something that we're going to continue to follow. At a certain point, as much as we've kind of talked ad nauseum about all this stuff, we've talked about a COVID-related item on every single show over the last 2 months. We're going to continue to monitor this, and we're going to continue to get new information out and new takes out and new stances. So I'm sure it'll be a part of our next show as well. But we're nearing the end of this one, so we're just going to kind of tease this idea a little bit, because this is something that's also going to be fun to bring the full group in. This is another thing where when Sean initially brought it up to us, I wanted to stab him. Sean, I love you to death. You're great at what you do. But when I got this tweet or this article, whatever you had sent our way, I was so pissed off. And then I took it as a personal challenge to sit here and work backwards and find a way to defend it. So I'm going to shift this one over to you now again, just so you can explain what it is that you sent us, and then you and I can explain why it's not terrible, and then we'll get the other guys' takes, and then we'll wrap this one up. So go ahead, Sean.
So, again, just scrolling through Twitter, like I always do, and just reading all the negative opinions on baseball and how this is a shortened season. And, some people are actually taking this to be a chance for, some more creative ideas, some more non-traditional ideas of how the game could be played. And I found this tweet by a man named Michael Tay Sweeney, and this is what he says. A rule change that would offend me as a traditionalist but would actually make baseball more interesting is, in quotes, you can bat your players in any order you want to as long as all 9 players bat before bringing the same player up again, end quote. This would allow the best hitters to hit in, on average, higher leverage situations and add a lot of strategy and tactics to the game without really screwing anything up and eliminating a lot of tiresome platoon advantage reliever strategies. Basically, what it's saying is for every 9 batters, every member of the lineup needs to hit. But after the 9th batter hits, you can completely change the lineup in any way you want as long as before somebody bats a 3rd time, all 9 batters have hit again.
So this initially pissed me off so much because I am, and we continue to say, a traditionalist of this game. And I know that the argument that the other side will have is that this is, you're changing a core rule of what this game is. But we are changing a core rule going into this season as to what our National League game is and instituting the DH. And one of the things that we love about not having a DH is all of the strategy that goes into this game. It's a smarter game on this side, and more things can happen on this side than what you get on an AL team. This is a way to institute strategy back into this game and to keep it creative. You want to see the JT Realmutos up with guys in scoring position. You want to see Bryce Harper up with runners in scoring position. This is a way for National League, or all managers at this point, to have to think on their feet again. This is not come up with a plan and watch if it works or doesn't. This is a Mickey Mouse kind of a thing that makes you have to outsmart the opposition. It makes you have to take risks at opportune times. You have to kind of look and see how the next 2 innings are going to play out again, whereas otherwise would not. So in efforts to put the thing that I love most back in this game, in strategy, I would accept this rule.
The most shocking things ever said on this podcast. It is definitely that.
What's that?
I said in the list of most shocking things ever said on this podcast. That's up there.
Listen, man, I don't like people who think that this game, should be completely changed in order to make it dumber. This makes you have to think. Kind of appeases both audiences, gets you more offense, but it also keeps you thinking. I have to kind of agree that you could accept this rule.
It's an argument, Shane, that me and you are gonna stick by tonight, and in defaulting it to the Sunday show, we're going from a 2 versus 2 debate to a 2 versus 5 debate. So
yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, you just can't call it baseball that, man. You just can't. It's a different sport.
Do you call the American League versus the National League 2 different sports?
Yes, we do. That's how I grew up.
That's honestly,
my dad doesn't. Fair. Yeah, my dad's dad grew up calling the American League a different sport. He said they're worse than us. They have to bow down to the National League. We're our pitchers.
Okay, so then we would all be American League teams, so this would not be baseball at all. So we're instituting a kind of thinking man's philosophy, just on the opposite end of things again. So we're kind of making it all baseball again, just in a weird fucking way.
It is weird. To me, you can't call it the same sport if you can't compare statistics decade over decade then. There's no way to, because of the number of at-bats and averages and home runs, RBIs, every statistic would be by the wayside. So you would have to throw an asterisk in there and be like, this crazy new rule started that only Shane and Sean like. Everyone else in the world hates it.
Yeah, but inevitably these guys are still going to come up with runners on base. They're still going to get the same amount of at-bats a game that they ordinarily would, or for the most part, they're going to get the same amount of at-bats. Like, it's just, you're just getting those stats a slightly different way. Because if everyone's doing their job, someone's almost always on base. That might be a way to combat the way that the three true outcomes. You might start seeing some more offense and some more. It's hard to pitch with runners on base. So if someone gets on base and you have to face to pull something from our text argument, a Pedro Feliz, you're not overly, intimidated. But if you got to pitch with someone on base and Chase Utley and his prime is up, it's a different story. That inning could go 4, 5, 6 more batters because you didn't succeed in getting Chase out, and then who knows what snowballs into it. So it's an opportunity to kind of, like I said, add some additional thinking to the game. People aren't losing at bats. Just situations might change a little bit.
Hey, Pedro Feliz had the most important RBI in Phillies history, so I don't want to leave.
I love Pedro Feliz. Anyone else who did not like him in that chat, I don't get where they were coming from, but I do love Pedro Feliz.
How many batters or pitchers allowed to see during this? Because that plays into effect too. Are we going to have some new rule where they have to see 3 guys or something? Or no?
That's already enacted.
That is the rule.
That is the rule.
I know, but does that rule exist too, or do we get rid of that? Because
absolutely. It's a 3-batter minimum. And that's the whole point of the strategy is you can put any 3 batters up against that pitcher that you want. You can switch it completely up. It completely takes away from that.
I love pitching so much. I can't have that.
We
can't get the game back to the hitters.
and that to me is one of the arguments I brought up, but at the same time, one of the arguments for I kind of brought this up as a reason why this would be a bad thing, and then I turned it into why it would be a good thing. Pitchers, when they're going through a lineup, when they start the game, they focus on that 1 and 2 guy. They focus on the leadoff guy, and they focus on the 2-hitter, so that when the 3-hitter comes up, if they focus hard enough on 1 and 2 and they got him out, they can kind of you make one mistake to the 3-hitter, it's 1 run. It's not 2 or 3 runs. You don't relax, but you can take him a lot easier. In this sense, you have no idea who's coming up. Continuing off that, a pitcher gets to the 7, 8, 9 of the lineup, and they their shoulders aren't as tense. They throw better pitches because they're more relaxed. They know that these guys are, the worst hitters on the team, or else they wouldn't be in the 7, 8, 9 hole. And they know that these outs are the most important outs because, they're the easiest to get out. They have the lowest batting average, whatever the case may be. In this scenario, you're taking that completely away. The pitcher has to focus on who's at the plate. They don't get to look ahead. And so they have to pitch the best to the hitter that's up at the plate in the situation that they're in. They don't get to choose anymore. They don't get to, pick and choose when they want to work harder just because it's a specific part of the lineup.
I like that silence. I'm giving you an air 5 through the microphone right now, partner.
I was going to say, off of the pitching perspective, for me, I understand exactly what Scott was saying, where the DH in the AL you strategize the game completely differently than the NL. You don't have you usually have
What's
one extra
strategy
pitcher.
In the AL?
You usually have an extra pitcher in the AL because you don't need a bench as much because you have a damn DH. But if you put a DH in all of baseball, that's just adding more offense to the game, where it's not necessarily changing the whole root of the game, where I feel as if you move the whole lineups and maneuver it, that's changing the whole rooting of the game, where it kind of developed and came from, where we've had the DH for so long. To some, it's become an ingrained part of the game, not to many of us on the pod, but to some people where that's not going to be as big of a deal, I don't think, is literally changing the whole root of the game and making it something different, which is what this would do.
Gotta disagree, man. Go ahead, Scott.
It makes life very, very difficult for pitchers, which I get that, the way the baseball is moving now, we need to focus on offense and ways to make the game more exciting. I just don't think it's fair to just change the tables or turn the tables like this on pitching.
I mean, the pitcher
you have to alleviate some sort of other rule. You have to get rid of the 3-batter rule or something. You can't have both here.
I don't totally disagree with getting away with or removing the 3-batter rule if that were the case. The one thing I would say is, what if everyone went Madden-esque and they just always had another pitcher in left field for these particular situations, so they could just flop pitcher for left field and just really fuck things up.
I mean,
that was an actual joke, by the way. I was that shit.
I mean, I'm doing like the scene from The Hangover when Alan has all the math numbers running through his head when he's looking at the blackjack table. I'm doing that in my head right now as I sit here and think about this. What if you could reuse pitchers and we do this too? So you're just funneling people in and out left and right, and I'll give you the 3-batter rule. We're not playing baseball at this point anyway. We've established that.
Oh my God. We
It's
are.
starting to look that way.
We are. Yo, partner, take it easy. Jesus, need another co-counsel here.
But here's the thing. This changes the fundamentals of the game. So at that point, I'm kind of with Scott, where I would just say, yeah, screw the 3-batter rule, and if you're gonna let, yeah, but not the whole root baseline of the game. You still have a standard lineup.
How did the Phillies build their team?
Years. Yeah, but like I said,
build their team?
No. That's for this season, Shane. Like I said in the article I put up on our site, the DH, if you have a year to prepare for it when it actually gets implemented as an actual rule, you're going to have ample time to adjust your roster.
No,
you're not. Yes, you are. You're going to have an off season to look at a free agency and pick some. Hell, you could get if you want another catcher and we don't keep JT, you can pick up James McCann and another catcher like the dude, I forget his name, but the dude that's always been on the Astros, Chirinos, that has power, and you can get DHs just through catchers and having a bunch of catchers with the expanded rosters, or just multiple different guys that have power. And the Ozuna's a free agent again after this season.
No, not that this
you have
affects
DH. So I would be with Scott, just let the pitchers mix it up too, and let the pitching matchup be as unique as the hitting matchup at that point, because then it's like a full strategizing game at that point.
So we're getting 82 games this year. You can take a pitcher out, put him back in, as long as he stays in the field. And on top of that, you don't have a batting lineup. You just get to throw whoever you want in there until everyone hits.
As long as he stays in the game. The pitcher's always allowed to come off the mound. As long as he stays in the game, he can always go back. That's still a rule.
2020 is crazy, dude. I'm not ready for baseball anymore. I need another week.
Yeah, maybe it's better if they don't play this season.
Yeah, who knows? Before we get too in deep into this particular argument, because this is something we could definitely go all night on. We've already lost our bet with we've lost the goal that we had set, that we were going to match the time of the last pod at 59 minutes. We have gone slightly over that now. But before we get too deep in this argument and we end up at 2 hours, because that could very much so happen, we're going to cut this one a little bit short. But this was another topic that Sean brought us that I appreciate. So Sean, nice work all around tonight, man.
Thank you.
You got it. While you are listening to Sunday's show, I want you guys to all do me a favor. Outside of the fact that I need you to hate Sean for the first hour and love him for the second, I need you guys to go to Just Food. It's 215-794-FOOD, 215-794-3663. You're going to treat yourself, and you're going to take it home. You're going to ask Asian Rob for any damn thing he wants to put in a box for you, and you're going to go home, and you're going to absolutely love it. You know why? Because Asian Rob is absolutely fantastic at what he does. And he reads people, so he's going to know whatever he puts in that box, you're going to freaking love. So you're going to check it out. You're going to listen to that food, and you're going to listen to Sean being asked for the first hour or half hour, however long the show goes, and they'd be completely brilliant in the second act. It's Just Food, 215-794-FOOD, 215-794-3663. Treat yourself. Take it home. Guys, any final thoughts tonight before we sign this one off? I'm going to start over there with you, Bork. How are you?
I'm doing well. For me, it would just kind of be to echo to stay well and stay positive to everybody, and to just keep hoping and staying positive that we're going to come back with a season and be able to enjoy some baseball, hopefully, and is not as crazy of a capacity as we outlined in our last segment, but in a capacity of some. And then I just have an interesting fact that I wrote down to close it out sometime about the one guy we picked up that could be in our bullpen, Drew Storen. And in Indiana, he was a travel ball star in the same program that produced former Philly that's not loved by many fans, but Scotty Rowland. So
Loved by this fan.
yeah, I love him too. Okay, cool. Okay, then I guess that's the fuck it.
Yeah, me, you, and Andrew.
that worked out better than I thought.
Yeah, nice play. Nice pull. Scott, any final thoughts from you, sir? You and your new microphone. That sounds lovely tonight.
No, I feel like a real podcaster here, and I think my arguments would have been way worse had I not been speaking into a microphone. So, Sean, you never stood a chance, dude. Sorry.
Oh, I love it. Scott over there with the phone sex voice.
Yeah, this was a fun one, guys.
Good. I'm glad everyone's enjoyed themselves thus far. Sean, we picked on you a bit. I joined your side for a bit. Any final thoughts tonight before we send this one off?
I may not say it as sexy as Scott would on his new mic, but everybody please continue to quarantine, continue to stay safe, echoing off of what Bork says. Please don't let the second wave be as bad as the first wave, and, handle another couple weeks at home. Please, I don't want to miss out on more sports. To keep it plain and simple.
All right, and my final thought here is, as always, check out the Jackdaws. We're going to throw this over their way here as they're going to bring us out. It's www.jackdaws.com. You can also find them on Facebook at the Jackdaws. And then their Patreon, which is just www.patreon.com/the Jackdaws. They are a fantastic Irish folk rock band. They travel the country, which they obviously cannot do right now. So the way that they interact is they consistently put out these awesome videos, these live videos on Facebook. So definitely give them a check out. All right. Jackdaws again. We're going to send it off to them. Everyone stay safe, stay well.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.